Hello, if you're a subscriber to this YouTube channel, Little Soprano, Gillian Wormley, you'll know that I have been really on a mission to share lots of information about vocal technique. Now this morning I asked members of my mentoring group, Virtually Vocalese, what they thought would be a really useful vocal technique tip to share today. And what they unanimously agreed on in the end was that the root problem of many of their original early issues to do with singing has to do with the jaw and the tongue and therefore the larynx. Now, how are these things related? How are they linked? What do they do? Why does it make it difficult? Problems with range, problems with intonation, problems with what we call constriction, where you feel really stuck in your voice feels tight and tired. So what I've done this morning is to dig deep into the Virtually Vocalese archive, looking for videos that would be helpful around this issue of the tongue, the jaw and the larynx. Perhaps you haven't got the range that you would like. If you have issues with feeling overtired at the end of singing, maybe the end of a rehearsal, then this is going to be something that will be very useful to you. So hold that thought, and here we go with the Virtually Vocalese archive. And you know that you personally, as a singer, you will be very aware of sometimes when things seem to be so impossible that you cannot seem to divorce your thoughts and actions around your jaw from your thoughts and actions from your tongue. Okay, and this has, I haven't even mentioned how the two then have a knock-on effect on the larynx, but hopefully by the end of this video training you will have a better idea, a better grasp of where to start looking into it, where to start observing and taking on board why some things are very, very difficult, and why it's so important to spend such a lot of time thinking about these what seem to be passing fancies in the singing world. Why can't I just get on and sing that song and do that thing? Why is it I'm finding it so difficult? So let's have a look at the infographic. We've got the jaw is really important. If it's not free, if the jaw is not free, it doesn't give the tongue enough workable space. Allow the jaw to drop. Now that would seem really obvious, but let's just think about that a little bit. I think one of the really important things to kind of hoist on board is to spend time actually looking at an anatomical video of how everything goes together. And within my YouTube channel I've got a playlist in there which I will direct you to in the thread underneath this video, so that you can go and watch it, because it's an animated thing, it's not an actual throat so you'll be glad to know about that, but it kind of builds the structure of the jaw and its relationship with all the kind of things that the links, if you like, between the jaw and the tongue. And it starts to talk about one thing I've not mentioned this morning in my infographic, and that is the hyoid bone. If you've never heard of the hyoid bone, it is extremely important for us as vocalists, because you have to understand how it relates to the tongue and the jaw. Basically, nothing happens between the tongue and the jaw without involving the hyoid bone, and therefore straight to the larynx. To give you a little bit more information, let me just read you something from another book that I have used in the past, but it's quite complex. It is Singing and Teaching Singing, A Holistic Approach to Classical Voice by Janice Chapman. You might have heard about Janice Chapman, I don't know. She's quite a kind of well thought of person in the singing kind of coaching world, and singing also. Now she has a section in here called The Tongue, Jaw, Larynx Functioning as a Unit. Okay, now just let me kind of read a little bit, because as I say, I was kind of using this book when I created my original infographic. in 2014, I think it was. Due to muscular connections through the hyoid bone, it is possible for these three structures to work together as a unit instead of maintaining their separate functions as articulators or as a phonator. This undifferentiated functioning is usually a sign that there is marked tongue root and jaw tension, which have an impact on the hyoid bone and thus on the larynx. The lack of independence of these structures is very inefficient from both an articulatory and phonatory point of view. This inappropriate interdependence often occurs because of the lack of abdominal support for breath flow, as structures such as the tongue root and the jaw assume responsibility for supporting the voice. So you can see that if you have your jaw, your tongue, your larynx all connected by the hyoid bone, if they're all fused together and working as one solid unit, you can appreciate that's going to create an awful lot of tension. And basically this is why we do the exercises that we do, which is to free up various elements of those things. Alright, now one weakness we have is articulation. Learning how we use the tongue. There are different components of the tongue and we have to learn as singers how to access them, and speakers, I guess, to speak clearly. And one of the things that people find very difficult is to work out which bit of the tongue does what. And it's important when we do exercises and start to introduce consonants that you must realise that the way in which we create the consonants and the way in which we use the tongue and the teeth and the lips, they all kind of mix together and become either the success or the downfall of the vocal tone you're seeking. Okay, so this is a very complex journey like just the rest of it, and it's just the tip of the iceberg, the infographic that I did today. The jaw is really important. If it's not free, it doesn't give the tongue enough space. Okay, so you've got to allow the jaw to drop, and it isn't about pushing the jaw open and holding it tight, it's about access, allowing. Okay, now as a final kind of something that you might want to look at, there's a link to a post that's to do with the jaw and the hip connection. Now I'm trying to give you the whole picture here. So there could be, for example, an added correlation between how you stand and how you treat your jaw. And it's worth reading that blog post that I think I wrote back in 2014 about how we are human beings and we are just responding to a sequence of events all the time. And when we think about our posture, you can see via this article, this blog post that I wrote all that time ago, that why posture is so important and why it's so important to always keep yourself firmly rooted in the basic 5 elements that I keep going on about, because we can do all the fancy exercises in the world, but if you are still struggling with the correlation of your posture and how you stand, whether you're truly aligned, then you're always going to have maybe problems to do with your jaw. And this bears out in all other areas of our lives. And I think that this little blog post is quite reassuring because it shows why these things happen, and because we are human, we still are responding to certain kind of factors that influence the way we do things. Okay, so perhaps it would be why you find that when you're doing exercises on your own, in your own home, that you are more relaxed, and therefore you perhaps don't have the same fright factor that you might do if you're doing a video to share with the group, or in performance. I've had those experiences so often where I'd be perfectly fine in the studio working it through with David, but actually on the performance platform come away from finish a song in a recital and walk away with really locked and stiff stiff knees because I've become tense. And I think the article is kind of supportive in your understanding. Now this is very complex, and please remember that in no way are these video teachings supposed to flummox you. They are like chapters of a book, little chapters that can explain further what the infographic of the day, the technique tip of the day, is saying, and it is really your choice whether or not you feel you want to try and understand more. It could be that you'll come back to some of these teachings, which we will repeat. They will keep going round in a cycle, and when you come back to it again, suddenly a penny will have dropped and you will think, I understand that now, I didn't get that before. So you see, it's all absolutely inextricably linked. There's those words again, but it really is. So let's just go over the infographic one more time before I finish, and you can give it some thought. Here it is. The jaw is really important. If it's not free, it doesn't give the tongue enough workable space. Allow the jaw to drop. And I've tried really hard to kind of emphasize important words that I think you should carry away from the infographic. The jaw, free, the tongue, workable space, enough workable space, allow the jaw to drop. And that basically, to the world out there, to the people who don't have the benefit of a further explanation, is that enough information for them? I think so, because there's just giving a pointer, and it can do to you too, just to remember to keep that jaw relaxed. Don't get flummoxed, just keep it simple and absorb the information. Okay? Alright, enough from me then. Have a lovely day, and I should be back very soon with more for you. Bye for now.